Good afternoon once again.
Good afternoon.
Ooh, the air is rich with energy. Can you feel it?
Yes.
It is almost as if there's an echo as we spoke. That is the result of the gonging and your stillness and the vitality of your imagination. It's good energy, yes?
Yes.
It's yours. It's yours. And this is important for you to feel it, to recognize it, to understand it, and to play with it. We want to emphasize again the importance of enjoying life. It sounds trite, it may sound simple, it may sound, we've heard this before, where does it play in the larger context of existence? Which you will get the most out of this lifetime when you add pleasure and enjoyment to it. You each have a soul agreement to raise yourself out of confinement, to lift the lid off the shoebox of your reality. It was one of our early channelings, and we called it the shoebox or something. And our vehicle thought, oh, the shoebox, what the heck? And it was a big seller. People loved it. They could relate. We said, you all live in shoeboxes. You need to get out of them and expand your reality. And so that is part of what your soul is here to do. Do not make your soul's burden something so big that you do not enjoy life. Play, have fun, and get the work done. That is one of our mottos from the Pleiades. Now, let's move again into questions. Who would like to begin? Don't be shy. Rachel, well, we've spoken with you a few times. Let's hear from someone who has not spoken at all yet.
This is Muggsy. I have a question.
Yes, Muggsy, welcome.
Thank you. As we talk about Anunnaki and humans and Pleiadians, we're describing ourselves and everyone by their physical form or their location. So my question is, if we take away the physical form or the location, are our spirits all very neutral, or do they kind of have, for lack of a better word, like a nationality or...
They have their own, we were going to say, you said nationality, but we were going to say they have their own country, so to speak. So spirits can definitely have prejudices or predilections towards certain ways of being. Another way of saying it is all angels are not equal. They are not all simply winged beings that are friends of God, so to speak. So when you are dealing with energies or locations or ETs, as you've said, you are going to find distinctions, absolutely, even in the non-physical world. What else are you pondering there, Muggsy?
Well, that's what I was wondering, because if, when we're here, we're human, but then if a Pleiadian comes into a human body, we say, oh, well, it's a Pleiadian in a human body, but then wouldn't that be a human?
Yes, of course it is a human. It is a human, but often you would say, well, I'm a human, but my lineage is English, or Italian, or Turkish. Do you follow?
Yes.
And so they are descriptors in terms of linkages, soul linkages sometimes direct bloodline linkages. And these links, let's say, add to the intrigue and the mystique of the game of figuring things out. In the larger perspective, remember, many layers of reality, and non-physical reality is rich with opportunity. It can be rich with vistas of understanding. Then when you shift frequencies or shift dimensions or shift into a different construct where the rules are different, the perspective changes. Physical reality has been described by some as light entrapped in matter, right? Frozen light, so to speak. Or more static energy that is holding itself in place. And because it holds itself in place, it allows you, and all of us, and billions before you, to have an experience. And in the larger perspective of existence, the prime maker had an experience so that other aspects of itself could have more experience and be experience gatherers. Prime Maker's original desire to expand into the multiverse was, one could say, in terms of emotionality, an act of generosity and an act of breakout and frustration. All right? In terms of anthropomorphizing this being. Who else has a question, an insight, a wondering? Muggsy, watch the skies. You're going to see something, it looks like, in the next moon or two if you look up at the right time. Good. Who else has a question that has not spoken yet?
Well, this is Sue.
Yes, Sue, welcome.
Thank you. Earlier with the vehicle, we were talking about, once again, Oversoul 7.
Yes.
And in this now, with the astrology that's going on, and it's triggering, depending upon our personal astrology, how does that relate to the other souls in the other times that we have?
So, in other words, your now and the astrological influences and cultural influences you are being subjected to or co-creating, how does that ripple into your counterparts?
Yes.
Or into the Oversoul?
Well,
both.
Now that you mention it, both.
Well, first of all, the Oversoul, as Jane Roberts very cleverly portrayed, it was a system-busting idea to start with, because the Oversoul wasn't all perfect and together. The Oversoul was a sort of struggling, somewhat mildly blemished being. Do you understand? A being in transition, a being that was appointed to be something and didn't know how to be what it was appointed to be. Sound familiar? Yes. It's like you are a young person, suddenly you find out you're having triplets, and there you are with 3 kids, and your mom and dad, and you are clueless about what it means to be mom and dad. But there you are, you did it, you will unfold. So the Oversoul juggling what's happening now. Years ago we suggested that this current life, because of its positioning at the end of the Mayan calendar, the nano era, the era of great acceleration, that you had the potentiality to be a standard bearer for your soul. Those were our exact words. You would carry the flag, so to speak, of the standard. A standard bearer would be the flag would have the herald on it. It would say, here is the noble being, this is what we stand for, we are marching here forward, we are leading the way. So these are all metaphors for part of what you as a human are attempting to achieve above and beyond just living your enjoyable life. You are gathering information that can and has liberated aspects of yourself that perhaps were quagmired in difficulties along the lines of time, and quagmired, let's say, prior to a time when psychological understandings or spiritual goals were as understood as they are today. So things that you figure out, Sue, for example, or any of you figure out, especially when you have to make life-changing decisions, especially when people come and go from your life, and jobs, people, relationships, all of this. These shifts, they create new props. How you deal with them imprints itself on this lifetime. But you keep learning information, and you make decisions, and those decisions and the information ripples into other aspects of your incarnational selves that support you in terms of what you can achieve in this lifetime, because so much information is available. Sometimes you take in information that's not for you per se, but it is for another aspect of your incarnational self. The Oversoul may impulse you to read something, to figure something out, or you may have a friend going through a situation. and you say, oh, my friend is dealing with this. Let me look up this in their chart, or let me look up this illness, or let me look up this psychological interpretation, or whatever it is. And you look at it and you say, that's very interesting. But that information can be then taken by the Oversoul and implanted or fed or watered into another lifetime. And a dream, a key can show up in a dream, or an individual can be given an aha moment, and they can be freed from difficulties that they saw their way out of. Of course, this moves backward and forward in time. So lifetimes can assist each other. Your role essentially, in how are you unlocking the lines of time? We've suggested that wounds, traumas, things of this nature happen for a reason. And they may leave a scar on the soul, the memory, and the scar says, you have to come back and look at this. And there's a wound here. And Chiron is a small planet, comet, asteroid, whatever, some little space orb there, between Saturn and Uranus. And it is called the planet, the wounded healer. And this, oh, please now, when you're flipping pages, like mice with velvet slippers. You like that analogy? We love it. Yeah. Mice wearing velvet slippers. That means you take the page and you do it so quietly no one hears. Why? Because it's a little irritating and it comes up on the CD. So there it is, the page flippers. Now, where were we? Chiron. So Chiron represents the idea that wounds actually are the keys, the helpers, the best friends that will take you to higher consciousness. It implies that wounds have a purpose. They are not random, insignificant, or bad luck. They are noble, and when you understand the role of the wound by its placement on the body, by its timeline repetition, by how many times it's played out before, you can rise above, let's say, having the wound dominate your life and free yourself with an aha. This might be about this. Now, once you play this game of figuring things figure things are about something, that can ripple along the lines of time and help another aspect of self dealing with something very, very similar, only with perhaps less freedom, with less ability to find things out as quickly as you can in this reality. One of the outstanding qualities of the nanosecond was that every second of the nanosecond, more information was available. And that would trigger and force a developmental cycle within your nervous systems. Of course, there would be many failures, and yet no one fried themselves out in front of you, really. But the nanosecond was a culling within the human population, sort of separating a self-culling extinction event, a mass extinction of sorts, a herding into various separations and various probabilities. So all of you, if you would, for a moment, now let's play a little game. It's fun to play games. We'll play Let's Remember. So let's remember the last 5 years of the nanosecond. That would be 2007 through 2012. And this is when everything really, really, really went into fast acceleration. The first 10 years, energy went tenfold quicker. The next 10 years, 100-fold quicker. The last 5 years, 6 years, boom, 100,000-fold. So what were some of the major events that come to mind that happened to you personally, or that happened on the globe? And just do a wondering for a moment here, and let's call up some events from 2007 to 2012.
Black man became president.
Who is it?
A black man became president.
All right.
Financial collapse.
Financial collapse. Fukushima. And then you had, more than likely, many of you had personal people dying, yes, friends. You had new people being born, some of you, yes. Those are probable changes. What were some of the other things that you were around for?
Gulf oil spill.
Gulf oil spill.
Earth changes, weather patterns.
Yes, what else?
Smartphones.
Smartphones.
We had a very big wedding and a very big birthday party.
All right, oh, that's a good one. Now, this was the time when everything went faster than fast. And these are special events that occurred during these years to highlight and punctuate how quickly things are moving. And all of that was an out-picturing of the energy building. Now, it's going to completely alter and change. Yet these events, you were there for them. They were planetary shifting events. Now you are going to have the capacity to seed events into being. And just as many of you are gardeners and you enjoy planting foods, flowers, vegetables, various edible landscapes, trees, berries, all kinds of things, it would be a very good idea for you to show yourself your own power if you could agree upon a sort of, with a few friends perhaps, or perhaps you could achieve it this afternoon, something to imagine that is going to happen, that is good. Yes?
Yes.
Who wants to vote on something? What could you imagine as a group, knowing the power of the imagination, that could happen that was really good?
Not on a personal level, but on
A global
level.
Something you would all focus on. Now, do you see that it's not so easy to think of things? Isn't that interesting in of itself?
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
This is Sky. I always think about nuclear power and nuclear weapons and just dismantling all of them.
Neutralizing them?
Yes.
Having everyone discovered that there are no victims.
That's a good picturing.
Free energy.
Yeah, free energy, like fusion, or one of the new technologies that they're...
Let's say the technologies that are going to really make it have not yet really been seen by many. And again, we were talking about small devices, small things that can be put on the side of the house. That's a really fun one. Because it creates, well, it does create harm, you know. There are lots of people who will lose a lot of money in this capacity to be cut out of the funds. But most of those people who will lose a lot of money, they have a lot of money. So it will be an adjustment for them. So a good picturing. And how about if we make a mass agreement here? This is how you create reality. And how about we anchor part of the new era as an exercise for these people today at the workshop, and perhaps you could commit to this for the rest of the year, all right? And maybe you could remember to picture at once a day, or at least once a week, to remember this commitment now. It will only take seconds. And you're going to picture people or yourself going up to the side of your house or the side of your apartment, wherever your meter box is, all right? And you are going to be someone standing with you, and they are going to say, hand you something, and they're going to help you put something on there, and everyone's got a big smile, and there it is, free energy device. Now, what you are picturing is the actualization of it happening and the happiness around it, yes? And it's sort of small, not too big, so that it's, let's say, bigger than your anchor crystal, all right? but a handable device, maybe 12 inches at most, 10 inches and 4 inches or something, and it's you see it's being put there. And this could be a way of anchoring the new era from this workshop by making a mass agreement. This is a good idea. I will put my attention and my thoughts behind this. I'll aim for once a day, and perhaps when I anchor in the morning, I'll picture that box being put on the side of my house, and I'll anchor it to an anchor. You with this? You're dropping anchor, and then this new picture, you will anchor it to the anchor so that you have something to remember it with. Mm-hmm. You follow? Mm-hmm. And then you let it go, and you let it go. And this can be your personal little victory. And someplace, at some point in your lifetime, perhaps you will see people having this experience and it will become you. The key to making it sort of really happen is that you're picturing that someone's with you and you're not inventing it, they are. You're very happy, they're very happy. It's the happy. It's the emotionality, the emotional satisfaction of it's accomplished. That is a way of anchoring things into the new era. And this is an easy one collectively. What would you like to anchor in for your own life? What would you like to call into form? You know, we've talked about the pulsating, beating rate of the multiverse, and that everything is energy, and that the physical reality is a result of a tuning, a bending of reality to create this platform of being. And yet you are still part of this vibrating multiverse. And the multiverse is designed in such a way to use its energy we talked this spring, like a 3D printer. And when you send out the image of the picture that you want, the job of the multiverse is to bring that into form. You with us?
Yes.
This is why it is so important to picture, to dare, to dream, to imagine. And you generally don't do that watching television.
Yeah.
You don't do that talking on the phone all day. You don't do that sitting in front of a computer. And so it comes down to each of you treating yourself to 5, 10, 15 minutes, a few hours throughout the week of me time, imagining time, dreaming time, fun time, do nothing time. Time to allow the cells in your body, the higher selves, the Oversoul, to help you create. And by doing this, you will be more productive. We are not saying sit in a meditation and hum. We are saying find these nice, rich moments, these rhythms, and enjoy them. And allow yourself these pauses throughout the day to keep contact with the multiverse and sending imagining pictures. In addition, of course, to anchor, aura, and cloak. Now, we'll digress for a moment here because a few of you have heard some of the CDs we did this winter, and we were talking about Gail and Michael earlier, the psychic chifforobe. And people are getting off on this. It's our creation. Unpatented, of course, but we make a lot of things up and we get mileage out of them. Some of them are very successful and some of them are just so-so. One of our greatest successes is the personal clutter meter. It's for free. You just picture a meter, 0 to 10, and you think of a room, a bedroom, a car, your body, anything, and you see what the meter reads. It'll tell you the truth about clutter and too much of it. Now, this one is about the ability to store the various psychic aspects or tools in a place so that over time you do not get overwhelmed and you forget some of your very basic teachings and learnings. So you would imagine what is called some call it an armoire, but we are using the term chifforobe. It is an old-fashioned bureau. And Michael, are you familiar? Did you ever have a chef robe?
No, I haven't, but I have seen them in homes that I've visited.
And so what did the ones that you see look like?
Well, they were very old, and they had a door on one side where you could hang clothes.
Yes.
And a door on the other side where they had a little shelf and drawers, and people could put treasured items on the top, pictures inside.
Yes, good. You've got it. It's
Old-fashioned, and a mirror sometimes.
Yes, a mirror, a hook sometimes here and there. Perfect to organize a lot of things. So you can hang your robe of protection in the chef robe. And then when you want it, you go to the chef robe and you pull it out. You can keep your anchor as an idea in the chef robe. You can picture an anchor in there, but mostly you're going to keep your anchor under your feet and keep it on all the time. It's not stored in the chef robe. We recently offered the hoops of invisibility, the rings of invisibility. And they would be little itty bitty tiny, tiny rings that would be so small that they would just rest on the tip of your little finger. Not even big enough to slide them on your pinky. Tiny rings, and they will be in an upper left-hand drawer of the chef robe. These rings are not to be used very often. They are not like the robe or the anchor. They are there for specific and special times when you truly want to be invisible and you do not want to be seen at all. You go to the chef robe. You open the drawer on the left-hand side and you just touch the little tiny rings with any of your fingers, and you don't slide them on, you just touch them. They will then make you invisible. These rings are also to be used for sanctuary. If you are feeling harassed, if you feel that you have to get away, you have to be restored, you have to get some kind of sanity back to your life, you open the drawer, you look at the rings, you touch the rings, and that will be a program that just touching them will activate a frequency of invisibility and of sanctuary. You follow?
Yes.
Now, throughout these next number of years, we will be focusing on more and more tools. And so this is why we gave you a place to store them, so that they don't get stuck in the garage, or you forgot about them, or you lose them, or they're in the boot of the car or something. No, you have an elegant chef robe. You can make it distressed if you want, or you can make it to just absolutely perfect condition. It is a place. And over time we will offer you more tools to fortify yourself, especially as you encounter, let's say, the need for them. Who has a question?
This is Jean.
Yes, Jean.
I have a question. I really don't know. You people are spirit beings, we're spirit beings. We're in human form. What is the big difference between you and us, other than intelligence? Do we have more emotionality than you folks do? And can we cluster it and have more power that way, that some of these spirit beings are looking for this power from us?
Well, certainly you are differentiated by your heightened emotionality and the capabilities within it. We have recently suggested that as beings in a body, you have not come close to figuring out what emotionality does, what its capabilities are, what its downfalls are. Oh, certainly people have tapped into the idea of emotional intelligence and the idea of stress and emotions and all of this. But the emotions are a major key to understanding all the biological life forms. For example, the flowers respond to your emotions. They have their own their way of reading back to your emotion, your response to their beauty, often then allows them to release more scent. You follow? So if you say, oh, what a beautiful rose, the rose then will emotionally respond with scent. Now, these different ways of mixing the senses are going to be very important as you enter an era of dealing with beings, visitors, and physical, non-physical, this kind of thing, that do not operate with the same emotional scale that you utilize. It is one of your most brilliant tools, and it can be your greatest downfall. Emotions can be harvested as energy and directed into other dimensions. Emotions feed feelings, now feed and boost beliefs. So if you are very, very afraid that the government is not good and they're going to come after you, and you really start working up a lather for fear, and you buy guns and ammunition, and you really start pouring this in, and you start joining groups that may believe the same thing. So you start putting a lot of emotional energy behind your beliefs, then it starts to create a reality. Beliefs without emotions behind them are pretty flat. Do you follow? Mm-hmm. They don't get a lot of juice. So for churches, for example, they have to get people emotionalizing to get the juice of the experience. So how do they get people emotionalizing in church? Singing. Perfect. Singing, music draws out, evokes memory. Singing can open the chakras. Singing can play your emotions like nothing else, along with music as well. So you are very complex beings, and to understand this level of sophistication, how the emotions mark you as unique and how they truly enrich the human experience, it's interesting to watch. Now, we cannot say that we have no emotionality in the Pleiades, that say all forms of life have some additional augmented emotion of sorts. Even you had Mr. Spock on your TV shows who claimed to have no emotionality, but still there is some range of that sense. Now, your scientifics are coming to the realization quite humbly that animals have definite emotional responses to reality. Mm-hmm. They have been in denial of this for decades and decades, and of course this would be an indication that the chakras of people who believed that animals had no intelligence or no emotionality, their chakras were so closed down they could not really feel or reach into reality. In modern times, people's chakras have been so open that it's not such a big deal to recognize that animals are happy, that they are sad, that they can be angry, they can be depressed. In today's world now, some of the biggest discoveries are being made about animals are occurring on the battlefield. The various branches of the military are training canines, dogs, to be warriors, to sniff out bombs and things of this nature. And what's happened, they didn't expect. The dogs bond with their handlers, their owners. The dogs can go into situations and get PTSD. The dogs can be overly protective. The dogs can be angry. The dogs can be, they have moods. And so because they are working with these animals, training them to do human things, the dogs are now allowing the handlers to see this sort of side of them. And you can look at all animals in this capacity. Now, we do want to say that all dogs are not equal, just as all humans are not equal, meaning that the quality of the enlivening spirit would be as varied in humans as it would be in animals. This is why you get elephants that paint. Do you understand? Or you get these animals who do certain things. Because a more evolved spirit can occupy a life form, and the spirit's intentionality and its resume can open doors in the DNA of even the simplest creature. Be aware of this. Who has a question?
This is Gail.
Yes, Gail.
How does the emotions, how do we get this scale of emotions? I mean, does this tie into the Anunnakis in terms of the geneticists? I mean, was it something that was genetically engineered to give us a larger scale of emotions, or is it something the gods have as well, or not? You know, I mean, like, I always think of it as unique to our life form.
Let's say that, of course, it's part of the tweaking, and the emotional scale that you're dealing with is a result of not having more connectability within the body. Still, you have learned through various souls incarnating how to study the body, how to operate and understand what emotionality can do. Mr. Freud, for example, you may not agree with him nor with Mr. Jung, but they opened a territory of mind connecting to emotion, time, things of this nature. So we're studying here to look for the answer. So the emotionality was needed in the human form. Without emotionality, you would lose interest in living, because your emotions help you interpret experiences. So if you didn't have joy, or if you didn't have bummers, how would you know what to do? You go someplace, you say, I'm never doing this again, this was bummer, this didn't work, but it's still experience, do you understand? Mm-hmm. And you had the feeling to say, I'm not wasting my time and my money doing that. So the emotions were given to you to help keep you alive and to keep you interested in being here originally. Over time, you became more sophisticated in your emotions as society developed, and you began to play music and explore the arts. And so one could say that music and all of the arts are an extension of your emotions in form, as an expression. So certainly the Anunnaki, with all their passionate addictions, that is to say, to ritual and pageantry and ceremony and opulence and goodness gracious, all of this sort of here we come, dum-de-dum-dum-dum. Of course they have emotional connections to these things. It's possible, friends, we don't want to hold carrots in front of you that aren't worth chomping on. But we would only give you fresh out of the ground, fresh hose washed off, the best organic carrots there are. So that's the kind of carrot we are offering you. It is possible that in a few short years, your pictures of the past will vastly, vastly, vastly accelerate. So another mass agreement that you could make if you wanted to anchor something else to the anchor here is to imagine that more and more astounding and important truths are just leaping out of the shadows and into the light of day. And that's a small group agreement to help anchor and build the new era. You understand? Mm-hmm. And so anchoring a new era means holding on to and energizing new ideas. A new era is going to have new ideas. Anchoring means you are going to ground it. And you ground things in when you are present in the moment, and you continue to energize them. I like this idea. It feels good to me, and that's a process of anchoring. What else, Gail, on this emotion thing? Does that open another picture for you?
So we, as we have evolved, we have actually enhanced our own emotionality or that scale. We've extended our own scale through music and art and things like that.
You started to refine it.
So,
Basically,
we all tend to think of ourselves as victims of having, well, not all of us, but, you know, we've got these emotions to deal with. And it never really occurred to me that it's something that we've intentionally over the years enhanced.
they're a navigating tool.
Yeah.
They are, look
But
at them.
then why wouldn't other species like yourselves or off-planet beings do the same thing? If they're so valuable, why are we left as the group that has more of this emotionality, and other groups have not developed it?
Why do you think that you have more than others? The Anunnakis gave you plenty of reason to see that they went bonkers at times. With their arbitrary throwing, let's say, nuclear devices at one another, or nuking Sodom and Gomorrah, or getting pissed off, so to speak, and saying, let's flood it out. Those are big emotions. Do you understand? And remember, our vehicle said something very perfect to you this morning. She said, imagine that you write something down, and then years later you look at it, whether it's a letter, a card, a diary, or whatever. And it's very revelatory, and it tells something important that you did in what was going on. And when you reread it, the words evoke other aspects of the story that unless you lived the story, you wouldn't know more than the words. Do you understand? When you read the Anunnaki story, you're just reading the words. The adjustments that they have made in you have tweaked you in such a way that the ability to read the words and access the whole story has not yet come forward for its place in your, let's say, resume of abilities. Will it? Yes. The carrot we hold before you is that you will be able, in a few years, could be phase 1 of this next 5 years here, that the story will grow much, much larger in terms of how you access it, in terms of the inner remembering. The inner remembering. And of course, to make you manageable, certain things had to be chopped down. The story says, well, you ate of the tree of knowledge, good thing you didn't eat of the tree of life. Well, they were preventing you from eating of the tree of life. Then you would be competition, and you couldn't be managed if you had a long lifespan. And so they've been managing humanity for eons of time. And different batches of children and others come in, and there's different reasons for things. Sue or someone asked us this spring, do they still get resources from Earth? Yes. Yes, the mining capabilities and the ability to take resources has become more sophisticated. And of course, because the surface is so busy, many things occur behind the scenes, underground, and using technologies now, and they could be just technologies that are tossed by the hand, not necessarily technologies that are pushed in buttons, but technologies nonetheless that can freeze frame your world. You get the picture of what we are talking about?
I think so, yeah.
All right, we'll explain this a little more. This will give you some boggling things to speak of. It's possible not to freeze frame the entire world now. That would be, you'd have to be big to do this. But it's possible to take a city, for example, or certainly a few acres, or here and there, or a certain situation, come in and freeze that reality so that it doesn't move. And then other beings walk in and do what they want, and then walk out, and then unfreeze the reality, and it continues along as if there were no interference.
So it would look like to the people
That nothing happened.
nothing happened, but they couldn't figure out why something was gone.
Perhaps, and in general, low-level ETs aren't going to come in a porch or things on this level, so don't blame it on, the missing car keys or whatever.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about that. I was thinking
On a freeze out, yes.
the diamonds that
Yes, on resources, yes.
Yeah.
But it could be a good joke with you. Must have been a freeze out. It's sort of an inside thing you can laugh over and make an excuse of why things disappear. But nonetheless, yes, that's a way. And it would be used not to fool around, just as kids taking the car, but it would be used in terms of a high ability to transfer things. So at some point, some people may get something ready, bring it someplace, they leave, and something comes in, freezes it, takes it, and no one knows anything better. So reality has ins and outs that you are ignorant of. And so this ignorance, this naivete, this false hubris in thinking that I've figured things out, so therefore I must know more than. There's a little humbling that is needed. Everyone's still in kindergarten, you understand? Mm-hmm. And we Pleiadians, you're saying, well, why don't we or others have these emotions if they're such a hot thing to have? Well, we do have them. But Earth, you are material, you are in the living library, you are on Earth, it's unique. It is very unique, and this is why so many of us are interested in it. These kind of situations are not here, there, and everywhere. You are a designed program. You've enticed all manner of beings to come and enter and exit this program. The stories have a grandiosity to it that only these visiting gods could get off on. This is opulence to the extreme. You follow? And if you want, look at their systems. Look at the cultures that they set up. They did this for themselves as well, not just for you. You send frequencies to them. You make legends for them. They can and have showed movies or pictures or reality shows. We don't like that term, but we'll use it because you understand it. Of things that happen on Earth, and they show these things to the cosmos, to their colleagues, to all kinds of things. What's running through your heads? What are your questions?
This is Janet.
Janet.
I'm wondering about ascended masters.
It's not really something we look into. We wrote about it in our early books, but
Okay, that's okay.
yes, it's there are beings that work to raise the vibration of humanity, but ascended masters was more appropriate for the 1800s, 1900s. It was a way of understanding reality. But now, for where you are at and what you have busted through, who wants a bunch of ascended men sitting there telling you what you can and cannot do? And we've already joked, people used to talk about the great white brotherhood. We say, what about the great red sisterhood, the bleeding women? You understand? So some things serve as stepping stones, as comfort blankets, to ways of describing realities where other forms of consciousness dwell. So certainly, without using the term ascended masters, let's rise above that and say there are beings with high frequency, men and women, who have come onto Earth. They have made pathways. They have done their own work quietly. Some of them will live way longer than the given extended lifespan. So if you're averaging 80, they might live to 200, 250. They're not going to stay 10,000 years. It would be no fun, you understand? And they may have a few other counterparts. They would be not like other humans, but look exactly like them. And then when they transcend, or go over to the other side, leave their body, whatever, take their body with them. Some do. It's not a common practice at all. That is what they would then be hovering over, looking. And they might incarnate again at a later time. And some of these beings were recognized as holy people. They have different names of sorts. But when you start saying it's men, and it gets a little hierarchical. And that's not what it's meant to be. It's a common practice in all versions of life that beings who have more knowledge come in and incarnate and pass as amongst the beings, and yet they are not. And they are there to help the beings evolve. They are there to study, to report things, to get their PhD on time jumping, whatever. You follow it? Yes, good, good.
This is Peg.
Yes, Peg, welcome.
Thank you. I was wondering about the Anunnaki, again, if they have an Oversoul or some higher
Oh, yes, of course.
force that we could, if they're causing so much trouble in the universe, and if we could appeal to their higher self to intervene and teach them that what's going on is not a good thing. What they're doing.
Yes, Peg, that's the next step of, let's say, the miniature facing down the mighty. And there being no difference but the will and the morality of consciousness. Size and evolution and power make no difference once you've got the game down. So the Anunnaki, of course, are struggling. They have been struggling. It's not easy to be immortal in those certain terms. Do you follow? Mm-hmm. And years and years ago, we talked about gods being trapped in their illusion. And the Anunnaki, these shoes fit perfectly. They are trapped in their illusions. And you have incarnated to help untrap yourself, untrap humanity, heal along the lines of time, and help unplug the Anunnakis. Mm-hmm. How about remembering what it was like to be part of the Anunnaki? That's your next step. To remember. It's in your genes. Do you understand? Everything is passed in the DNA. So whether you had incarnated or not, the records, the story, the brilliance of biological life forms, the brilliance, the impeccable design of how life was recorded here, particularly human life, is that all of the stories are stored in all of the DNA. You have come to an understanding of something called the holographic view of the multiverse, the universe, that all can be accessed from a small little part. And this is a very simplistic way of understanding that everything leaves its imprint, everything leaves a record. Right now, as you sit here this afternoon and you wonder, or when you were listening to the gong and you were riding this sense of, I am a powerful being, my aura is vital and strong, you demonstrate the awakening of beings who have been suppressed, who have been deceived, who have been poisoned, and the indomitable human spirit and the willpower of people from a soul group who say, we will do it. We'll wake up and we'll figure you out. And we'll help you get unplugged because you've made a mess. And remember, when someone makes a mess, there are consequences. And when you pay the consequences, that's how you learn lessons. If you are never held accountable, you don't have to face the consequences, then it takes a while for things to catch up with you. But everything catches up with itself. And so you may be in a version of reality that is racing towards what some would call disclosure. And you know, right now, these days right here, we believe that they are meeting in Washington, D.C., various peoples, to discuss what and how to deal with the ET issue. Some of it is public, some of it is not. So you are thinking, oh goodness, we have these big Anunnakis, what are they going to do as they come into our lives and their story and all of this. But they are thinking things too. They are not so totally confident that they can come in and stomp all over you. Do you follow this? Mm-hmm. You're already firing them and shooting at them and having destructive wars with them in space. We are going to do something for a moment here. We are going to go into your DNA. So sit very still if you would. And your job is to breathe as quietly and deeply as you can into the diaphragm. And so that you are going to picture that the breath goes all the way into the bottom of the lungs. And then you take it into the bloodstream, and then you slowly exhale from the bottom of the lungs first, and then emptying the top of the lungs last. Exhaling. You just keep that rhythm quietly and move that diaphragm in and out. And we are going to go into the corridors of your DNA. And the DNA is a spiral, very interesting spiral, like a ladder with interconnecting pieces. And we want you to picture that a flow of energy is moving down the ladder and across the rungs, all the way down the ladder, across the rungs, and the ladder goes on and 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 on. And listen to the word on, on, on. Do you understand what we are saying and doing? The ladder goes on and on and on and on, and finally you reach the end and it flips to the other side, and you are bringing the light on, light on, light on, light on. Good. All right, come back to the moment. Light brings information. On means on. On is anu. On is your visitor. On is a word that flipped the light on. And you light up a room, do you understand? Light on, you light up the DNA. We'll see what happens. There was a moment that we captured that was possible to take something that was in the dark and bring it into the light. You will see the result will be in the next quarter through summer solstice, because the sun will reach its very big peak at the summer solstice. You will start to figure things out faster and faster and faster and faster. And the story of the gods, this mystery today, will become crystal clear. Because inside, light is on. Questions, comments?
This is Bill.
Yes, one moment. The beeper didn't go off, did it?
No.
A few minutes?
No, it didn't.
Do we have a few minutes?
We have, on the clock, we have 14 minutes.
Oh, we have lots of time. All right, go for it, Bill. We just wanted to know how deeply we could go here.
You spoke earlier this afternoon about our enhanced emotionality or ability for emotion to become more than they have been. You also mentioned basically our conscious multidimensionality is also being enhanced. And then I was trying to tie that together with something the vehicle spoke of just before this channeling, about a book written by Orson Scott Card called Past Watch.
Yes.
If people in the future were going into the past to change something to make their present better. And they had a lot of discussion in that book about their moral responsibility, if any, about changing something in the past. And then I was also thinking about how you have had us working with some of our timelines to try to improve or enhance or solve a problem. Then I keep throwing around my mind, do we have any moral responsibility for changing the quote past for things that might have happened differently and maybe not ultimately not as good as we had anticipated? It's since we're going to be doing more of that kind of thing, do we have the responsibility for considering the possible negative impacts of us trying to do a positive thing?
Well, certainly, Bill, that's well thought out. And of course, the moral obligation that issue will come up again and again. Once you are living in an incarnation that you are not constantly struggling in, once you learn how to manage the flow of energy, and whether you get married and have children, or you run business, or you're climbing mountains, or inventing things, once you have that energy moving, and you've balanced those lower chakras, and you start to understand the bigger picture, there is a natural sort of cluster and moving towards wanting to advance others, to advance the entirety. This is based on the idea that I am in all things, I am another self. This is in L'Chaim from the, is it the Mayan? I am another you, yes, I am another self. Anyways. So yes, Bill, there becomes, reality can become more complex. Most of you now are dealing with your timelines, your personal life, getting things organized in a row. But eventually you will, either in body or out of body, start to look at the ramifications, the obligations of taking what's called right action. That the decisions that you make are not simply impetuous and frivolous because you can and you will and you want to. There's a duty after a while, it comes with maturation, to see that what you do one place ripples in another. It takes time to get there, but you will all get there eventually. What else, Bill?
I just had a thought that just as you have come from our future to make a change in your past to enhance your future, your present, my way through this dilemma could be very simple. It's okay, we go to another timeline or whatever, initiate a change. Are we creating a new parallel reality, yet the old reality that you want to change continues on, so you really haven't changed anything, you just created a new parallel?
That's good thinking again. Let's say this, that some things always remain and they can be accessed. Yet, when something is in need of healing, and the intention is to help the blocked energy become unstuck, perhaps from another lifetime. So a person is wrongly imprisoned or some such and can't figure out how to get out in a simple situation or something like this. So that then you create a situation from the present that allows them to get out of prison and reunite with the family, and the children don't have to die and starve, and yet is there still someone in prison? One could say that prison version of reality would lose its vitality and it would fade, like fabric that fades if it's left in the sun too long. And then if you leave it in the sun too long, it would rot it, so that it's not energized anymore, and realities are fulfilled by solving the dilemmas. Someone asked us last evening about moving into completion. Do you remember that? As if there was an end goal to end all things. But the completion involves moving aspects of earth, people, plants, animals, out of pain and confusion, out of separation, and back into love and integration. Those are very simple words and a very profound process. So in actuality, part of your work is to wipe out the past from one point of view by freeing those aspects that have really trapped themselves. And yet you can't wipe it out completely, then the whole game would be gone. So there's this give and take, you follow? There's many options within one lifetime. And the options or the realities that are focused on, that bring resolution, that bring happiness, that bring joy, that bring vitality to the people involved, those probabilities have more life force in them. They have, the batteries are constantly changed. The other realities, the batteries wear down and they can fade away. But they are still stored as an echo, as a memory. These are ways of looking at reality. But you are doing some good thinking. You are moving into understanding how each of you individually, the power you have to affect reality and to change your own life and to change the lines of time. And this is the game we play. It's the game the Anunnakis play. It's part of the multiverse. It's part of what's out there. Who has a comment?
This is Ronnie.
Yes, Ronnie.
Considering we achieve our recreation of your future and our future as well, your past, our future, and you have the optimum probability, what does your reality look like? What is the optimum for the Pleiadians in a future probability that's corrected or optimized?
In other words,
What are you aspiring to?
we're aspiring to, let's say, turn the tyranny around and to have a reality that can work with and deal with, let's say, what got set into motion way back when. And understand that when we speak to you, you've all clustered together in one reality. We are actually speaking to all of you across the lines of time, and actually all of you have different lives in very different lines of time, and those selves hear us like in a dream. And you all come together to cluster here in one place, in one reality. As Pleiadians, we are not. Our common thread is the Pleiades. But have you ever looked up at the Pleiades in a telescope or even a binocular? There's a lot of stars there. And there's lots going on. It's a bit of a nebula. And we have a black hole. We are a staging center, meaning that it is sort of a university of beings that come through and dream up realities. We are not one people in terms of you are all human. Some of us are physical, some are non-physical. There's giants in the Pleiades. So the Pleiades are a tricky place. And they are a beloved place to many. But that does not... Oh, the teams are returning. It does not mean that all Pleiadians are good and they've done all good things. We are paying the price of a certain karma. They'll pass in just a moment.
Actually, I think they were clustered in the hallway.
Yes, they're all right. So, what else?
Would it be that you would be one of the aspects of your creativity that would be freed up would be to continue seeding new civilizations and other reality, other star systems and so on? That's part of what you do.
What would be freed up, to some extent, would be the remorse over many good intentions and then leaving a trail that was not swept. And that's right out of tracking, if you understand what we are talking about. A trail was left that beings here on Earth eventually peace.
Wait, I'm gonna be the first one over there.
Hold it.
Is there a little bit of coach talking
Changing
out
their
there?
reality.
Good. Everyone needs coaching. You understand this? It's all right. So that it's the remorse that many have, the regret over setting certain things into motion, and then the blowback that came out of it that was not expected, so to speak, and yet we all learned from it. We all learn from it. And when we told you the story 25 years ago about all of this occurring, we have learned so much about you, about the lines of time, about why it occurred. You see, we were seeing the results of something, and so we had to take on the healing, detective work, as it would be, very scorpionic. And Scorpio is opposite the Pleiades, you understand? Mm-hmm. And we had to come to Earth and look at what other ancestors had done, piece the story together, agree to meet you, and agree to grow with you in terms that you could understand. Our work with you has changed what's going on in the Pleiades.
Oh, good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When we came to you, the problem was quite massive. There's certainly still difficulties, but our work with you and exploring the nano allowed new probabilities to be birthed and to be born. So that in the ideal, this tyrannical visit of cyborgs from Earth can be sort of the batteries taken out of it, in those terms. Yeah. And it's sort of a reality that would fade because we're building another one that will have a healthy version to replace it, so that you can visit us and not be cyborgs, and create a new avenue of visitation. And as we've said, some of the Pleiadian visitors to the planet have withheld certain information at times. And sometimes that information was withheld because it was withheld to play power games, but often information is withheld because it is inappropriate to dispense it, and the people who may receive the information would completely misuse it. Someone said earlier, what's the difference between us and you except that we are smarter? It looks like we are smarter. Because we operate differently. And we've figured out how to take one of these things that you all have, a human body, and operate it in a way that we get more mileage out of it than you can operating the same vehicles. It's been a very interesting experience for our vehicle to share her body with us in this lifetime. And we have been able to achieve many things because we can operate a body by using what's already in it. You follow? Mm-hmm. On a personal level, our vehicle had many lifetimes of initiatic preparation that were designed to augment her ability in this lifetime to run the energy without destroying the body. Because that's usually what happens. The nervous system can't take the energy. And that's took many planning of many lifetimes. All of you have had many lifetimes as well that support and help prepare you to do the job you are now doing as well. We are familiar to you. Many of you recognized us instantly. That would be because there were agreements before you came into the body, and prior to that it would be because for years, we came a-visiting in the dream state. And we used to say very simple things like light on, remember light, and we would show ourselves as vibration. After we started channeling using our vehicle, she became the focal point, the symbol, the model of our footprints. And our vehicle and her sister are very well aware of how many people wrote letters and said it over and over again, dreaming of our vehicle. But she represents we. We were always there, but now you have a way of we to take form. Do you understand? Sometimes you literally dream of our vehicle as herself, but often she represents to many people we as a visitation, as a female vibration. And we purposely chose female vibration because this is what needs to be restored and augmented onto the planet. And we will say that without any prejudice, the female body is stronger than the male body. It is more stable in terms of endocrine fluctuations. The female body is very strong because it delivers life. That is what makes it a different vehicle, so to speak, than the male body. Now, all spirits can incarnate into male or female, and some are more comfortable in one body type than another. And yet the spirit may say, well, I'm going to kick you now, Oversoul, saying, you've been a man too many times, you better take on a woman now and get into the woman. And so you may take a woman's body and not like it, and then say, I'm more familiar being a man, or vice versa. The real riders can be comfortable in either one, and they don't carry a lot of prejudice based on what's between their legs and the kind of endocrine system you have. Each is a unique experience. Do not make judgments, and you set yourself up for all kinds of things, wishing you were a different gender, changing genders, and changing all these things. You are riding a physical vehicle, having a good time, and incorporating other memories, other tendencies, other abilities. You've chosen who you are and to be born where you are, to link up with the people, because it's all that you link up with, because it's a big plan. There are many more people to link up with in the next number of years, because part of anchoring a new era will be, let's say, putting into work the imagining for thousands of years. And there are people who are moving now, shuffling, rearranging, and so you are going to meet a new level of friends, a new level of connectivity that is not so much about figuring things out. It is about applying and doing and playing together, and having playmates and having co-creators. It is about living the dream. There are wonderful times ahead. Please know this. Treasure being in the body, and as we started this afternoon, we said enjoy life. Do your very, very best, and may all your days be better than Zippity-Doo-Dah brings you. Right? So just remember, there is a Mr. Bluebird on your shoulder, and that's the way it goes. So it's been a very great pleasure.
Our pleasure too.
Good. And just to be a little trite, it is true that when you wish upon a star, your dreams come true. Remember that. Remember that. So we'll be seeing you again. Pleasant journeys and the very best of creations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We don't always stay for the clapping. Thought we'd get that one in there. So thank you very much.
Wow.